Wait, this says it is. Oh, you should take a picture. This is live now. Okay, so now let's hit this button. Wait, this says it is. Oh, you should take a picture. This is live now. Okay, so now let's hit. Okay, so hopefully it will work. Let's see. Let's hit this button. Find another way to going live to your broadcast. Okay. Tag friends. Okay, so let's try seeing if some people have joined. Okay, so here it is live. Okay, so I'm on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, the questions should work. Yeah. Okay, there is 10 people watching on YouTube also, which is nice. Yeah, welcome to everyone. I'm just waiting for a few more minutes for people to join in. I see currently about 6 people watching on YouTube and about 14 people on Facebook. Let's see how it goes in a couple of minutes, and then we can start letting people to ask questions, and then I can answer. Okay, let's get started. It's about 7 minutes from 9:30 that time we planned. So welcome to everyone for whoever is joining the session, both in Facebook or on YouTube. This time I'm trying to see whether we could actually use both the platforms at the same time. So benefit of people using Facebook, and of course, Facebook features are interesting to use on one side. But there are more and more people I started realizing that people want to be away from Facebook or don't want to log into Facebook for getting content and things like that. So that's why YouTube is there. So you should just be able to see my YouTube channel and get to this video live chat. And of course, if you're on Facebook, you should be getting the notifications and you should be able to see it. Okay, good. So we have some questions already posted. I would request for people who have questions about anything of this topic of PhD in India, and meaning if you can keep it focused on the computer science area, that's good, because that's what I would be able to talk about more. But there are some generic questions also. Since I floated the questionnaire, anonymous questionnaire, so to say, because I don't know who asked. It could be my own students who could have asked these questions. For anonymous questions that I asked for you to fill. We'll take some of those questions and walk through the answers that I have as of now. So we can take the questions that has already been posted on Facebook. I saw a couple of questions. Let me just take them. Akib Khande. Hey, Akib. So Akib is saying, hello, sir. I'm working on the area of social networks, and any problem is regarding identifying political astroturf. Akib, I don't know what you're asking. It doesn't look like there is a question in your comment. So if you can add something, if you can qualify your comment and saying what you really would like to see, what you would like me to specifically answer, I would be happy to answer it more. Then Syed. Syed, good evening, sir. I have taken suicidal identification detection on social media as research topic to classify them into various categories of distress. Can you please suggest something about it? Yeah, so I think this topic is becoming more and more important, right? I don't know whether you started already doing literature review, started looking at research that's been already done. So one of our collaborator that we have had in the past, Professor Munmun Chowdhury from Georgia Tech, has been doing a lot of work in this space. And I saw recently also some super cool work by Munmun in terms of this whole specific topic that you're saying. It's a suicidal identification from social media. So I would strongly suggest Munmun Chowdhury from Georgia Tech is the person that you should start with. I think from there on, you can branch on to a lot of other research work that she has done, and the references that you will find from those papers from Munmun and her students. I hope that helps, Syed. If you need more, please ask. We can look at it. But both the questions seems to be very specific to, so to say, social networks and topics around it. But given that this is more like the AMA for PhD life and PhD, doing PhD, why PhD, what next to PhD, and all of that. If there are any questions particular to PhD, please post. We can take it, because I don't know. Again, the disadvantage of having anonymous questions is that I don't know whether you're here in the live streaming. If I answer the questions that I have in my Excel sheet, whether it will help anybody, I don't know. So I'm going to wait for more questions to come up from people who are here. So I think it will make sense for me to answer the questions for the people who are in the live now, instead of actually questions somebody else must have filled. So let's do the questions for people who are here. Okay. So I think Syed has come back with this. No, okay, sir, I've taken my research topic as to identify propaganda in social networks. Could you please suggest me something regarding this? Propaganda in social networks. Propaganda in terms of, I don't know, in terms of ideologies, in terms of political topics. I know which one you're planning to look at, but of course there is, I mean, there's a lot of things that you could do. Right? Propaganda in terms of ideologies. I think there are enough. So to start with, you should probably look at a group. I think Kathleen Carley's group should be probably a good starting point in terms of identifying some interesting problems that she and her students are doing. So her name is Kathleen, Kathleen, Kathleen Carley, Carley. So Abhik, I understand propaganda in terms of politics is what you're interested in. But I would be curious to know what kind of data you have in mind, how you're collecting the data, and probably what kind of analysis you plan to do. Akib, if that helps. If not, throw more questions. We can take it again. Okay. Wow, this is really good. Suddenly, there's a lot more action from questions on Facebook, and there is also some one question on YouTube. Let's take one by one. Let's take Madhurima Honda. Thanks, Madhurima, for joining. Let's say I'm currently working on SMS spam filtering project. Can you please suggest me some of the ideas I can work upon? I have a data set of string text to messages and another of one binary label if SMS is spam or ham. Oh, interesting. These kind of projects we did many years back. So I don't know whether you know our own work. The project was called SMS Assassin, and that basically was looking at the same problem as ham versus spam. But I thought that the data sets that are available were very limited. This was just my understanding. This was probably like what 2011, 12, I think, probably even 10, 11. Data sets that were available for analyzing this SMS data was very limited. So if you have a larger data set and if you think that there are interesting directions to take, you should pursue. But I find at least our take on it was limited data set, and also the question of how much of, so to say, SMS is currently there. It looks to me that the number of SMSs, that text messages that we get, are probably reducing because of so many other reasons, I guess. Because probably even when I book tickets online, I don't get any more text messages, but I get a WhatsApp message from Make My Trip saying here is a ticket, right? So given that's the state, I don't know how much of, so to say, fertile problems exist in SMS spam filtering right now. So I'm also going to think about again. So all the three things that is talked until now, which is Akib talked about identifying propaganda, then Syed talked about suicidal identification, and now you're talking about SMS spam filtering. It's okay. I mean, we can talk. This time is left for to help some PhD students across wherever you are to help however possible. So we can take these kind of specific ideas or projects and talk a little bit about it. But the general session was about general PhD life. That's okay. I'm okay to actually keep it very specific, as Madhurima and Akib and Syed are talking about also. Okay. So for all three of you, if you think that there should be more, please post again, and we can actually take it further. Sarthak Tripathi, thanks for joining, Sarthak. First of all, thanks for doing this. Was really interested on why PhD part. Currently doing undergraduate and was thinking whether I should stick to academia or move to corporate life. I do have an insight into the corporate part, but don't really have anyone I know who's into academia where I can get their point of view. I hope you think that I'm part of academia. So that's the whole idea, right? Just to break the so to say barrier of people connecting to people like me in academics to getting input. Now you have these kind of channels where you can ask people like us this question. So I think thanks for this question. So one suggestion that I will give: why PhD? So why PhD is an interesting question, and it is also very specific to each one of us, right? I think Sarthak, you would appreciate that why PhD for you may or may not be the same as why PhD for me. So so I think so one suggestion that I have specifically for this kind of a question is this: basically rows and columns, where you can actually do write down the so to say metrics that you want to measure in the columns, right? For example, a column could be making money, being popular, so to say having a good work-life balance, having more time to spend with family, all of that, right? Columns is basically what you want to measure. What are the things that you would like to compare or measure with at some point in time, right? Making money, popular among friends, popular in general, being able to impact people. Yeah, impact is another one that you want to add. All of these are columns. So your rows could be why PhD. So you can probably keep it as why PhD is just only one row, or why PhD in India, why PhD outside India, why PhD in Europe, whatever. That's the rows, I would say. So the catch in this, I was telling somebody recently also about this, the catch in this is that you want to fill value of 1 to 10 in each of the cells, which is for why PhD, or even the rows could be, actually, let's just change the rows. Why PhD, and then why corporate, why, so to say, stop with your BTech degree. That could be the rows. I think let's modify that, right? Why PhD, why join the corporate, why say let's take to a startup, right? Just to add more options that are in front of you after your undergrad, right? So given that that's the rows and columns, so now you fill each of the cells with the value of 1 to 10, slightly spending a little bit time on making sure that you're truthfully filling it. I think that's what you want to keep in mind. You want to keep in mind that the values that you're putting in this cell is thought through. The reason is because you don't want to say that, okay, you're more biased towards doing PhD, and you should not be filling why PhD as values as all 9. Right? So that's the reason why you want to keep put the values very truthfully. So I mean, I've done this exercise myself. Take it from me, Sarthak. I've done this exercise myself when there is a lot of confusion in making decisions, right? For example, currently I'm also looking at people getting admits into different graduate schools. Which school do you do? This is a good thing that I suggest, right? Different columns. Columns could be, again, making money, whatever. Rows could be different schools. You have an admit, do the same thing. So I think this is nothing to do with why PhD, but this is to do something with generally when you are in a state where you want to make decisions, you can actually use this metric, which is rows and columns. Rows are the options in which you can, options you have in front of you. Columns are the metrics that you want to measure. If nothing else, I know for sure, this table is not going to solve the problem. This table is not going to give you an answer right on your face saying, oh, this is the reason why you should do PhD, or you should do PhD because it looks this way. But definitely this will allow you to delete some of the options that you will not be happy with. For example, one of the columns should be satisfaction, right? Satisfaction in life, satisfaction in having a societal so to say, change, right? All of us are trying to do some extent of that. So if you have one of the columns to be satisfaction, so you should fill or after undergrad what you do, right? So this exercise will definitely help you to rule out some things which you don't want to explore. Sarthak, I hope that helps. That's kind of a, so to say, not just philosophical answer, but at least slightly an abstract answer. Nothing to do with only why PhD, but I was just using it to explain why PhD, answering why PhD question. So when I was just looking at some of these questions, it will be nice if it is okay with you, given that your Facebook handle and YouTube handles are showing up here. If it's okay with you, just a one-liner on who you are, just for me to help at least get some ideas about who I'm talking to. You're a PhD student in NIT, you're a PhD student in Sarthak's case, you're an undergrad where? What are you studying? Just one line. So what are you studying? Where are you studying? I think that should be good. This is just only for me to get a sense of what kind of audience am I speaking with. I hope I'm not speaking with only bots. Sarthak Tripathi is not a bot, which is a program which is asking me a question and hopefully sitting back and not worried about what answer I'm giving. Okay, good. Sarthak, hopefully that's, I want to extract data from Akib. I want to extract data from Facebook and Twitter. Yeah, Akib. So I think Akib is the one who's talking about propaganda, right? Yeah, sure. Please collect and you, yeah. And I'm facing problem in feature extraction phase. Could suggest me that features should I consider regarding political propaganda? Akib, if you, I think it's getting too detailed with just your problem, Akib. But quick suggestion that I would have is features are just, I mean, if you're collecting tweets, the features are about what? All the things that you can get: profile, network, content, right? So Akib, one suggestion I would have is if you think that there needs to be more discussion on this, drop me an email. We can take it up separately, because it looks like you're getting to specifically only your research problem to discuss, which we can try to take it offline, because that will help only you as in the problem that you're working on. Okay, Syed is back again. Thanks, Professor. I'm watching this live. Actually, I've read some paper from Munmun Chaudhary. My next query is that whether we can download some data set already experienced for classification from different researchers on social media for training the classifier. Can they provide so that I think if you think that there are data sets that you think which Munmun may have, or annotated data that Munmun may have, and if you would like to use it, I think you should drop her an email. I'm sure all of us as researchers want our data and papers to be used by others. I'm sure Munmun will be super happy to share it with you. Okay, let's go to YouTube. So I see Hardik Tharpara. What kind of exposure we can get in India for doing joint research like corporate university? And I'm getting a message from Junaid Reshi saying, sir, the comments are disabled for public on FB. Oh, Junaid, it's not clear, because I see a lot of people asking questions on Facebook, and I don't know whether they are even connected to me. So I would assume anybody should be able to ask questions. If not, you post it here, Junaid. I'll take it on YouTube, given that you're on YouTube right now. Okay, what kind of exposure we can get in India for doing joint research? I don't understand, Hardik, what do you mean by exposure? Hardik, if you can qualify, what does exposure mean? What are you looking for? It will help me answer a little bit more concretely. Okay, so Syed. Okay, so Madhurima. It looks like Madhurima, Akib, and Syed are like, yes, this is an opportunity to get all answers about the research questions Let's do it. Meaning, if there are pain points in your PhD life, I'm happy to help in some ways sitting here. Actually, sir, since Geo has cut down the rates of SMS daily, we get 10 to 15 text messages which are not relevant. This is one thing. Another problem that I faced was that I don't get the messages of my license was accepted because the tool I was using listed it as spam, but it was legitimate one. So although accuracy of the tool is great, still efficient distribution was not there. So what else can be worked on so that the efficiency can be increased? Again, Madhurima, same answer probably to what I gave to Akib. It looks like you're getting too much into your research problem. So if you think that it is worth having a chat separately, I'll be happy to have a chat with you, just going over what you have done more, because this, I mean, just everything you're typing in text, right? I really don't understand. I don't know, don't get a sense, don't get a view into what data you have, what kind of algorithms have you used, what kind of training data do you use, all of that. So let's get the opportunity to see that. Once I get to see that, probably there will be better, so to say, informed suggestions that I can give. Ardik Tharpara is here. So I think, Ardik, it looks like you said there you are not able to do it. You posted your comment here on Facebook. What kind of exposure we can get in India for doing joint research? Again, Ardik, if you can qualify what does this exposure means. Exposure in terms of, let me just quickly react and then we can come back to it if you want. Exposure, what kind of exposure we can get in India for doing joint research. I think exposure is like what? I've had students who are working on some projects with it. Actually, currently as we speak, I have a PhD student who's spending a large amount of her time in actually doing work with an industry, right? She actually physically goes to a company to work with researchers there in doing our PhD work, right? So exposure is to that extent. You can walk into a company for doing a research. At the minimal, you could probably sit in your own research lab and get the problems from the industry and work. Something in between could be you spend most of your time in academic doing your research. You get to spend time, your summertime, summer internship, all of that you spend working in the industry, right? I think that's the level of thing I can think right now for exposure, but I could, we could talk about it if you need more. Madhurima, you're an MCA student from IGDW. Good. Meaning, next time when I'm in IGDW, we should meet. Syed, after identifying the suicidal identification, how to validate the proposed work as real-life suicidal data can be obtained. Yeah, so I assume you said that you wanted to say cannot be obtained, Syed. These are problems, inherent problems in some of these kind of topics, right? So I think you got to read more literature on how Munmun and everybody is trying to do it. I don't know the details of Munmun's paper very well. How they are basically people working on that space, right? So you should understand more about how to evaluate and what kind of metrics are available. That brings a good question, Syed. Generally itself, I think you want to be when you're studying, thinking about PhD, picking up problems, all of that. You want to make sure that you are able to pick problems which has problems which are able to you're able to see through the problem until this extent of metrics, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to also make sure that whatever you did, you should be able to evaluate, you should be able to add value to the domain in that sense by arguing that your research had some impact, right? So in that sense, understanding the evaluation metrics of your own research that you're doing is definitely an important side. Given that PhD is in a few countries is just 3 years in duration, how exactly is different from Indian scenario? Oh wow! So I think that question, given that a PhD in a few countries is just 3 years in duration, how exactly is it different from Indian scenario? Indians. So I think some of the questions, Tulsi, is that when you get PhD admits into some of these European countries where the PhD is limited or planned only for 3 years, I think students go in with the PhD, so to say, topic, right? For example, I have a student now who's gone into Oxford for his PhD. So there, I think you've got to go with the thesis. I think the masters were also like that. I think he did his masters in Cambridge. So where you get into the master's program, it's only for 1 year, but you get into the program with this understanding that you're going to do only this area. The advisor expects you to prepare that level of detail before getting into the master's program. Right? So therefore, what happens is it just cuts down the time in which you are able to cuts down the time totally spent on a PhD, because the time of doing coursework, the time of finding out which problem to study, all of that is cut down, and it just helps you to start with the problem itself. But it throws so this is for people who are thinking about PhD in India versus PhD in outside and all of that. It throws a different problem actually at some point in time. It will throw a problem of when you finish your PhD. I think you want to be also thinking about that. When you finish your PhD in these 3 years kind of environment, when you go to a job, sometimes there is going to be questions about are you completely prepared for it? Right? Because that's the question that they would have, which is, are you fully prepared for getting onto the full job? For example, full job as in academics will be much more critical than probably industry in that sense. So academics will expect you to do postdoc. Academics may expect you to do a few years before you come into the academics. So that's what I can think right now. It is cutting down time, starting to the project, and then post PhD, you will have this situation where you're probably expected to do a postdoc, which is also the scenario, by the way, if you do PhD in India and want to be a faculty in Indian good institutes, that criteria actually comes back again. Aside, you're a research scholar from J&K. Very nice, very nice. Good to have you. Sarthak, okay, thank you for, I understand my question might have been a little vague, but I think you answered it beautifully. I'm a third-year undergraduate student at NIT University. I've been to many international programming competitions and hackathons, which I won, which in turn allowed me to peek into the corporate life. The contacts I made and work I landed was interested in trying out some research. Academia helped me to take this. Of course, Sarthak, I think it's brilliant. So you're at NIT University. You should just latch on to some of the good things that they're doing there, and definitely get exposure to research and academics. Oh, Akib and Syed are both from J&K. Very nice. Okay, let's go to Swapnil Mehta. Thanks for doing this. I'm an undergraduate working at CERN on deep learning for physics. I'm sure you went through the highs and lows over the course of your PhD and had some worldviews change, while others were reinforced. Wow. A slightly meta question would be, how does a grad school change you in a unique manner compared to research in industry or a master's degree? Of course, I understand you can't provide a general answer to cover all cases, but I'm curious to know your experience. How did grad school change your views, so to speak? Wow. So if only if this was a classroom where I was doing this AMA, Swapnil, I would ask everybody in the room to clap. So if there are people listening and people are interested in clapping, let's do a clap for Swapnil. I think that's a brilliant question, and particularly for a person like me, what changed PhD? What influence did PhD have? I'll give you like many reasons, right? So many very great things happened during my PhD, at least. So let me take it one. I mean, I don't know, Swapnil, whether I'll be enumerate all of the things, but I'll enumerate some of the things that are super important for me, at least, which I got out of PhD. I think first one thing, particularly going to CMU, one thing that CMU made, as some of you may have seen if you're following me on Twitter or actually on Facebook anywhere, I have this hashtag of proud CMU alum, right? One thing that CMU did to me, which I think is unbelievable, was this pushing those limits, right? I think there is also this pushing limits is also something that in campus people talk about in CMU. I think if good ways of interesting ways of saying this is semester one done, happy, good, well done. You'll think that wow, you did really great, and then you do go to semester two with this great feeling that you were able to do this semester one very well. Semester two will be even more harder. Semester two will be even more sort of say pushing the limits, and you will cross that again, right? So that's the thing that I felt was like just happening again and again and again every semester. That this pushing limits was happening. Second, I think is Swapnil, that I think which just helped me, particularly probably compared to masters and everything. One, the biggest advantage that a PhD student or a grad PhD life would have is that you're there in campus for long, right? The second thing that I felt, again, probably this is very, very biased. Both answers could be biased, so please take it with that, and particularly also take it from this point of view also, that I am super excited, and I am that's why my hashtag of Prof Giri and everything also, right? Super excited to be a faculty, all of that. So my second thing is that you end up actually so in PhD life, in master's life, you're spending 2.5 years, and particularly in the actually now even in India, right? Master's program are generally tuned towards the students, group projects, it's doing courses together, all of that. Whereas in PhD, you kind of just on your own, right? I actually almost took a lot of classes just alone meaning no other PhD students that joined at the same time were in the class. Right? So this capacity of absorbing, right, which I felt like was happening for like every semester again and again, right? Things that are happening, meaning at least in CMU again, right? You go to lots of talks, you have this Turing Award winners, Nobel Prize winners, all of these people show up in campus. Just taking that in is so much different for particularly for some of us who were there now or went from India. This is such a different feeling. So I think that's my two things that I find PhD life would give you. And let me give you the third thing. Third thing, which I was a PhD student attending a conference in California. This was, I think, is in 2009. Interesting experience. I think this is absolutely brilliant. Meaning it cannot happen in a non-academic or a non-PhD life is what I'm trying to say. Which is that I think the conference was in Google, and then we had a tour planned in Oracle and in Microsoft. So I think we had the breakfast in Google Mountain View office, and then we went to evening after 3 o'clock or something. There was a tour in Microsoft, and then there was a tour in Oracle. So I feel like so as a graduate student, we were able to get into, not just me, right? There were a few of us who were going to hop on into these companies to see what interesting things that they're doing. I think that this is very easy to get if you're a PhD student and in academia compared to if you're in industry. I'm sure you can get it in industry, but it looks like it's much more sort of say simpler, much more easier to get access to different research and different activities if you're in academia, easier compared to if you're in industry. Swapnil, I don't know if that helped, but that's a brilliant question to ask. If there is anything that you want to probe more, please feel free to ask. Sarthak, I understand you're not a bot. Madhurima, sure. So we should catch up when I'm in IGGW, or you should say hello to a lot of professors that who are connected to us otherwise also. Thanks, Syed. I think if you think that you want to probe more on the questions, feel free to ask again. Good, good, good. I think this is going well. Let's go check it. Wow. Wow, what happened suddenly in YouTube? So many questions popped up at the same time. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna take a small, not a break, just a water break, I guess. Let's get some little energy. It's cool. How does someone measure his PhD progress during PhD? How does someone measure his progress during PhD, especially considering the nonlinear nature of research, progress, and inability to compare with peers, as everyone starts at different point? Now I think people are thinking, I guess. Earlier there was a lot of questions about specific research, but now I think it's getting into generic PhD. I think we need some steaming going on for some time. Okay, it's cool. Here is what I would suggest. How does someone measure? So some things that I keep telling students that I work with generally is that you you want to make sure that you generate content every semester. Period. Right? You want to generate content which is new, which is novel, which is, let's take survey of areas, something, a body of 12 pages, 15 pages, new content every semester. If you can, if you can submit it into places, if you can get some reviews for it, if you can get it accepted, well and good. But if not, just keep generating this content. Right? I've definitely seen students who do this well, generating content, end up doing actually well, finally doing the PhD, so to say, defense, because you're generating chapters, you're generating content, right? Because without that, it is hard to measure, because you're going to, I mean, as all of us know, you're going to sulk a lot of time, and you're going to find out what you're doing, and the time is going to just fly, right? The semester will go by like that. You're doing TAing, you're doing actually finding out problems, you're just reading some 10, 15 papers, you're just deep into some of these papers, and the semester goes by. So therefore, keep generating content. Keep generating content, not just generate into your head, right? Because I think that's where most of us will find it hard. Okay, it's cool. That's my answer to how do you measure. Oh, and by the way, when you generate this content, if there are venues for you to get reviews on this, do that. That's even better, right? Submitting to conferences, workshops, or PhD colloquiums, or even create. So these are things that you should do, right? Because you should generate a set of students in your own campus who can actually start reviewing what you do, right? There is a little bit of, I mean, I think we would end up having this little bit of insecurity, which is, oh, if I share my research to somebody else, or will they take away my idea? Will this be my idea? My PhD is on this, blah, blah, blah. All that will come. Definitely. Those are rightfully correct and right ways to think about also. But I think you should find out some peers who can, I mean, if you can find this set of peers, which would be brilliant, just take a little bit of one or two students which are like, so to say, seniors, one or two students who are juniors. I think that worked out fabulously well to get feedback. Okay, Junaid Reshi, can you give me some insights as how to proceed with data collection on Facebook, given that the information is not available easily? My topic is misinformation. Yeah, so Junaid, I think Facebook, hard, short answer. Facebook is hard to collect data. You can collect data which is I think, public pages, public groups, and things like that. I think, I mean, if you're asking me as a researcher looking at Facebook for misinformation, I would say that you should think of other media platforms to collect data. Jaideep Kotak. Sir, can you please suggest some of the good universities in India and abroad for PhD in cybersecurity domain after completing a master's? Oh, okay. So I'm sure you understand, Jaideep, it is not about, I don't think so anybody would give you a PhD in cybersecurity. I don't think so, even IIIT Delhi, IIIT Hyderabad. I don't even know whether any IITs provide you PhD in cybersecurity, right? PhD will be in computer science. Your goal is to find faculty who is working in cybersecurity, right? If you're looking at that, I think I would say IIT Kanpur, of course, IIIT Delhi, IIT Delhi, right? So these are the places that you want to look for people working on cybersecurity. Meaning the institutes that I mentioned, there are more than one person. So that's the reason why these are the institutes that you should explore first, because it gives you slightly a breadth of looking at people. There are other institutes also where faculty are working on cybersecurity space, which you should explore. But these are the institutes that comes to my mind right now. Probably one thing we can do is we can even list down faculty. But that would, yeah, it's going to be hard to maintain that kind of roster of people working in the cybersecurity space. But the easier way for you to look up Jaideep Kotak is that look for conferences in cybersecurity and look for faculty who are publishing from India, and that's a great starting point. What are the parameters on which my PhD application will be judged by those universities? Okay. So Jaideep, looks like you're. I don't know, Jaideep, if you heard. If it's okay with you guys, please say who you are. Also, just one liner on. I'm studying so and so at this place. That will help me understand what kind of person I'm responding to. Okay, what are the parameters on which PhD applications will be judged by these universities? But let's just talk about. Let me talk about me. Right. Again, please understand. Universities, you're putting the word those universities. Universities generally admissions process will have some standard rules, which I think will be also published, saying that you should have X amount of percentage in marks in MTech, all of that. So that, given that you pass that criteria, which may be different in different places, you should look at their websites. But what would a faculty look for, right? What would a faculty look for is what I'm assuming you're asking, because that's more the subjective part, right? Why should I take you as a PhD student is the question that you'd be more interested in, right? So one thing that you want to make sure that in your application that is very clear is that you should show some experience on digging something deeper. You can use the word research there, but digging something deeper, let's keep it abstract that level as, right? You should definitely, it may not be successful. I think we have heard this again and again from people that it does not have to be a successfully published paper in good places. If it is there, this is good. It will show that you are able to go through the whole process of ideation, data collection or methodology, algorithms, whatever you're able to do, and then pushing it as a paper and then getting it accepted. Absolutely good to have that cycle. But please remember, that does not mean that you can get a paper anywhere and say that, oh, I have a tick on the paper and please give me the PhD application. I think that's not going to happen in good schools. So we're generally looking for people who, I think people who are sincere. See, because PhD qualities itself at some point in time is away from, so to say, just being good in academics, right? PhD itself at some point in time is going to be more of sincerity, more of this perseverance, so to say, right? You got to stick with it, right? You got to stick with it. That's the key component of a PhD life also, right? So in that sense, you should consider thinking about whether you have that. Only when you have that, you should consider applying for PhD, right? Jaideep, I hope that I answered a little bit of the question, but if you think that you did not get what you wanted, if you want to probe again, feel free to ask. Hitkul, how different the PhD process needs to be for academics? What do you mean? Differences in research focus and internships one should do. Hitkul, how different the PhD process needs to be for academics versus industry? Oh, okay. It could correct me if I'm wrong. So you're saying that its PhD process needs to be for post-PhD, I assume, right? When you're finished with PhD, if you have a goal to academics, what you should do. If you have a goal to industry, what should you do? I think not that much. I think what you should do is basically have a lot of fun during your PhD life, right? Fun in terms of doing interesting things, showing that you have interesting skills. And now, meaning, I think when I was doing PhD 10 years before, and now I can see a lot of different things that I could have done if I was doing my PhD, right? Be part of open source project, have a very active GitHub account, right? Have a meaning be part of this what do you call PyData, PyCon kind of open source conferences and workshops that are happening locally in chapters. Meaning, if you show all that, right? So basically, when you do all this, one, there is a lot of generation of enthusiasm, excitement, all that. But you're also being part of creating an ecosystem, being part of it, and everything. And in the process, you also learn a lot of problems, right? A lot of problems in terms of PhD problems to solve, problems to attack. So I think both industry and academics that's the way. So, but I think if you're thinking of going to academics, you've got to be a little bit more, so to say, focused on getting a good top tier publications. Industry also it's necessary, but I think in academics there may be more. Academics may be more critical in that sense to get you in good schools, right? Again, we're talking about good schools in academics. In both, I think even another thing that I think that is important for PhD students now. If you're not in this, you should do it. Which is that you should seriously consider writing code for the papers that you build technologies, build so to say prototypes of what your PhD what your paper is showing, and use that to showcase that you are able to actually build things also, not just write papers, right? Not just build solutions, build so to say algorithms. You should clearly have the skill of building it may be small tools, right? Meaning again, this could be just bias from my grad school to me, but I think of late almost all good conferences are also appreciating the fact that you're able to actually address a problem, do some fundamental research, build something, tools around it, evaluate it, put it public. All of that is getting appreciated more. All of that is not just getting appreciated more in the conference or the venue that you're submitting, also across the so to say academic, across the conference, across the domain peers. I hope that helps you. Cool, but you have a differences in research focus and internships once you do. Oh, okay. Internships, my so to say, steps that I would recommend is first 2 years, don't do any internship. First year, you start the PhD program. First one full academic year, be in campus. That summer, let's take you start in fall or whenever you start. First summer, you stay in campus. Second summer, stay in campus. Do things with your advisor. Explore a collaborative project with another professor or whatever, right? 2 summers, stay in campus. Just get your basics done, which is coursework, understanding of this, able to push out papers. All of that gets done. And then for the third summer, fourth summer, try doing some internships. And that internships, you could decide what you want, right? 1 year you do a academic or go to a research lab, 1 year go to an industry and whatever. I mean, this also depends on what all opportunities you're getting. Okay. Abhinav Nagpal. So I'm taking these questions from YouTube. So just in case for people on Facebook, I mean, there is also this live thing going on YouTube. People are posting questions there. So I'm picking up some questions from there. I'm picking up some questions from Facebook also. Wow, it's already close to an hour. And we have a lot more questions, I see. Good, exciting. Okay, what is your take on Abhinav Nagpal? What is your take on working under a prof as research intern for 1 year before going for master's? Is it better to opt for a job? What can be better for the application? Yeah. So Abhinav, I would recommend you to go back in this video, like I think Swapnil or somebody asked this question some time back, where I was trying to explain them a table with columns and cells, all of that, right? So I would recommend again that kind of exercise for you, which is to figure out 1 year before 1 year work for internship in academics, 1 year work for industry. All of this will be your rows, columns will be the metrics that you would say, okay, opportunities of getting a US good application, opportunities of getting into this program A, program B, program C could be the columns. Generally, I think if you're, so, but Abhinav, please understand, some of my answers are so because I get these kind of emails these days, right? From people, it is hard for a person like me to give you an answer without knowing a lot of things, right? Because in your case, I don't know what your, so to say, academic institute is. Even with little bit of information, the answer could be very different, right? Which institute, what is your academic standing in the class, what's your, so to say, GRE score, what kind of people are going to write your LOR. So all that also will depend on whether you want to take an academic job or go work for a company, right? So please understand that. But in general, if you're not financially pressed, or if you don't have a so to say pressure with respect to actually going into the industry, I would recommend any time academics makes sense. Probably I'm also biased. We need good people to be part of the academics doing research. So that's another reason why I think you should join academics. Okay, Junaid Reshi, how to write a quality paper in PhD, the things we have to keep in mind and important points while targeting, say, transactions or top journals. Junaid, I think the question, I mean, I think the question is generally about novelty, right? Wherever you go, I think this is again another comment, like the answer is going to be like what I answered now to Abhinav. It depends so much on what area, what journal are you submitting, meaning is it the what problem are you working on? So all that it is going to depend on. But abstract answer, which probably is to some extent you would already know, is that novelty, right? Novelty is what is going to give you into the doors of these journals. I don't know whether that was convincing, Junaid, but again, I think that this question is so abstract that other than novelty, other than being it very rigor, so just the buzzwords that people say, right? How to write good paper. Okay, let's take that. Let's take that as a point, Junaid. How to write good papers. Keep it what do you call, watertight, right? Flaws in the paper should be lesser. Finish the paper a couple of weeks before the deadline. Do a multiple round of, so to say, reviews. Right. So those are the things that I would generally suggest for having a good paper. And I picked this up from somebody in my grad school also, that there's a small difference between a good and a great paper, which is this: 2 weeks before the deadline, have the paper fully ready, and doing the proofreading, making sure that small things are fixed and everything will make the paper much more stronger. Anu Sharma, okay, Jaideep is an assistant prof at GFSU. Nice. Thanks for joining, Jaideep. Okay, Anu Sharma, for successful career in academics, which university colleges will be good in India? How I should approach to professors working in professor's domain or working on my own interest or problem? I'm a postgraduate from Tapar University and now I'm teaching domain in Engineering College of Gurgaon. Okay, Anu Sharma, I don't know whether I'm understanding the question, but let me read it again. For successful career in academics, okay, so I assume for successful career in academics, which universities, colleges will be good in India to pursue PhD, I assume? How I should approach to professors working in professor's domain or working my own interest? See, I think this question of what area to work is another interesting and a very challenging question also. I think what you should do is you should so what are the keywords? One, you should be opportunistic, right? First, you should be opportunistic in terms of where is the, so to say, domain going, right? Where is the next interesting fertile land of problems that exist? What are the low-hanging fruits, right? So those are the kind of things that as a PhD student, I would start looking. Of course, no doubt that you want to look at the most hardest problem. You want to take that up and do it. But I think large proportion of us, including me, I guess, would be looking at some problems that we can solve in smaller size, get some things added, and then we put them all into a bigger story for a PhD thesis. Okay, Anu, did I answer your question, Anu Sharma? If not, please rephrase the question or probe me a little bit more. I think I can answer if there is anything more. Abhinav Nagpal, how do colleges abroad evaluate research publication? Do they value conferences in India or once in abroad or prefer? I would not say conferences in India versus abroad. I would say that what is the quality of the conference is what is preferred, right? So I think looking at how many years the conference has been there, what are the kind of good papers that they have published, all of that is definitely looked at. I mean, if dub happens in India, that does not mean that it's a conference in India, right? Whatever it is, it's dub, right? So. Okay, Jaideep has come back. Thank you, Professor, for answering my questions. It will be great help if you can suggest some of the faculties in your knowledge who are working in network security and machine learning and cybersecurity. Jaideep, perfectly. So you should just look at. I think again institutes, right? IIT Kanpur. You should look at the security center there. Network. IIT Kanpur. You should definitely look at. You should definitely look at some faculty in IIT Delhi who are doing network security. So if there is faculty specific needs and all, just drop me an email, Jaideep. I will actually help you, give you the pointers to their pages or names and everything. Okay, those are the questions that I had on YouTube. Let's go back to Facebook. I don't know what has happened to Facebook. Okay, so. Okay, thanks, Syed. That helps. I'm happy that if it helps you. So, no, thanks for the detailed response. I think that was actually a pretty great set of reasons. In fact, the access to cross-domain and cross-company research is one of the primary reasons I'm really looking forward to starting my program. In this case, I will continue working in ML. Okay, follow-up question. If when you manage to get through the others, I see a lot of disillusionment in tech these days, more so with industry and little lower academia. But the systems in place, take peer review for instance, or take predatory publishing models are arguably broken. Sure, change is coming, but how do you deal with the knowledge that you're going to need years to implement this change you wish to see, no matter how hard work towards it? Wow, so then you exist. these are super hard problems, but yeah, but these are things that have been there for years, and some of the things are going to stay. Some of the things are also changing. Right? I have clearly seen in the last 10 years of 9.5 years of being faculty, or close to 10 years, just a couple of months of being a faculty, things have changed within India also, right? Just look at the number of. Only today we were having this conversation. Just look at the number of people who have done good PhDs and come back to India doing interesting work in the last 5-8 years. Lots of people out there. Lots of interesting things are going on, right? Lots of, so I think the statistics about just this, so to say, publishing in good places, that's the question you're asking, which is the publishing strategies and everything like that. But publishing in good places from India is also increasing, right? I guess this is along parallel lines to the question that research projects are often long-drawn studies, and no amount of enthusiasm is going to keep you going all the time. You're going to have off days or off weeks even. What kept you going, other than the fact that you loved what you were doing? So I think that you love what you're doing also sometimes can be questionable, right? Right. So, but I think it is what kept me going. What kept me going was this thing of. I mean, I definitely wanted to be somehow connected to faculty. Being a faculty, right, which lets me to do all these kind of things. Probably that was the main interest. I mean, I never knew that these things are coming. I never had a Facebook account, so please don't think that I knew all of these things when I was doing my PhD and stuff. These are all being very opportunistic in that sense, which I was suggesting PhD students to be at some point in time. What kept me going? What kept me going is this thing about wanting to have a, so to say, a PhD. So I also thought, I also learned something from another faculty in very, very early in my PhD, which basically said that without a PhD, it's hard to convince people of what you're thinking, right? So, I mean, I think I have a longer story for it. If you're interested, ping me sometime. I'll tell you sort of in the longer story about it. But I think the short story is that with an undergrad and a master, it is hard to just convince somebody that this is my view on this topic, which I understand a little bit more deeper. These are my views, and just get that view out, and just make sure that that view is kind of implemented, used, or whatever. That is probably one of the things that, and you need a lot of support, right? A lot of support from many different ways, friends, family support to finish it. Because I have some friends in CMU who were literally so close to finishing PhD and did not finish, right? And it's also about this whole thing of having a what do you call it? Satisfaction of finishing what you started. Right? In the hindsight, I feel emailing you would be a better alternative, since these are rather complicated questions to answer. It's not complicated, Swapnil. It's just that I think it's very, very subjective to the person I'm speaking to. Right? It can't be generic. That's the reason why probably I'm suggesting if you can drop me. Okay. Akib also seems to have convinced that he's gotten answers. That's good. Good, nice. I think it's we ended up having about 8, 10, 16, 20, 25 people probably put together, which is nice. Okay, Jaydeep, thank you. I went back to YouTube again. Thank you, Prof, for answering my questions. It will be great help if you consider some of the faculty. Yeah, okay, that I suggested. How I get to know where are low-hanging fruits, problem domain as beginner. I don't have an idea about future of any topic. Okay. So, Anu Sharma, I think the catch is you got to learn a lot of research. You got to learn a lot of papers, a lot of things that are already written on this topic. I even say to students that you are so to say, unless we are Einsteins and so to say researchers at that level, we are going to produce research that is as good as literature that you are aware of. I think that's something that we have to live with, right? Because you will be able to produce only results, or you'll be able to produce problems, questions, and all of that to the extent to which you understand the literature. I mean, I'm sure sometimes you can come up with questions that are like completely off. Nobody has thought about it and nobody has written about it, but the chances of that is very low. I'm sure. Right? I'm sure you understand that. I know that is getting to know the literature. To the extent to which you know the literature is to the extent to which you will be able to actually produce problems. Right? So, meaning talk to people who are doing research in the space. Send some emails to some PhD students, right, who are working. Faculty, you may or may not get the response, but PhD students, send some emails, talk to them, and see what can be done. Right, Anna? Hopefully that helps. But short answer is read a lot, attend talks, and now with the proliferation of all these videos online, just consume all these content. Without that, you're not going to understand. Nobody posts these kind of questions. Meaning, one of the suggestions that I've gotten during my PhD life is, if you're not, this is also a lot of other ways that has come out after that, but before that also probably. If you're not putting in 100 hours of time in a week, 100 hours of time in a week, don't, so to say, doing well, wanting to be known in that area, all that. If you're not putting in 100 hours, it's not happening. Simple. Right? Yeah, I've had these suggestions during my PhD life, and these are I think pretty profound suggestions. I think you've got to figure it out, right? Without that, it's going to be extremely hard to have an impact, extremely hard to figure out. I mean, 100 hours, not just 100 hours just sitting in the lab, right? 100 hours of doing something interesting, doing something, figuring out. I mean, one of the other suggestions that I've had, these are probably not suggestions, I should say, I've heard people say, so to say, not just to me, but in general also. This is when you're into a PhD problem. You got to live with the problem, is what somebody said, right? I don't know how many of you are Rajini fans. So if you're not, you can skip this part. But if you're interested in knowing something, Rajini's latest movie, Peta movie, there's one line that he says, right? That thing of love or saying no, right? There is this Tamil, I mean, I'm saying it in Tamil, but it basically means that you've got to do it with that much of love in it, right? When you're cooking or when you're doing things. Like, that's what he says. I think when he cooks and he says that why is his food so well prepared or whatever, he makes his comment saying that it was done with a lot of love. Right? That part is also missing, right? In some of us, we got to be actually living with the problem, right? You got to be brushing with the problem. Meaning, yeah. So these are simple things that people will throw at some point in time if you're connected to the right side of people. Some thoughts. You got to live with the problem. There is no escape for it. I mean, if you got to make an impact, if you want to be a person who's supposedly quote unquote knows this topic well, live with the problem. And for a PhD student, I think it's possible. Or probably I should even say it's necessary. I hope my own PhD students are listening to this at some point in time. I would have definitely told them this, but I hope my own students are listening to this. Okay. Junaid, referring to my previous questions on writing papers, too often we do have the content, but not able to put it in a way that paper requires. In the discipline of social network analysis, what are the key factors and techniques while writing, and more importantly, targeting a good journal, given that they take a lot of time? As such, what is a better option to wait for a journal or publish in a conference? I'm a PhD student. I think, Junaid, the question is nothing specific to, so to say, social networks, I think. The question is in general about I assume you're getting a computer science PhD. I think computer science area is generally gone towards, so to say, conferences, right? So there's a lot more conferences than journals because of the cycle thing that you're saying. And the other ones that you're asking, too often we do have the content but not able to put it in a way that paper requires. You got to read, right? You got to read a lot of these techniques. I mean, I was super lucky and thankful to have some people at CMU who help me to figure out these kind of things, right? Techniques to write, right, in terms of active voice versus passive voice, in terms of stepwise writing. There's like a lot of these small tips and techniques that one uses to make the paper better. This is only writing, and I'm just talking because you're saying that the point is you're not able to put it in a way that paper requires. I don't even know what a paper requires, by the way, right? If I'm a reviewer in a paper, am I expecting only certain things? No, I think that there are papers who have interesting things, but not put it in the, so to say, some, not just structure, but still they have a good impact or they have a high chance of getting in. In the discipline, Junaid, I don't know whether I answered that part well for you, but in the discipline of social network analysis, what are the key factors and techniques while writing, and more importantly, targeting a good one? Yeah, I think I've answered Junaid, your questions, but again, if you think that there are more, please ask again. Okay, what is Swapnil saying? Swapnil, I went back to Facebook. You're right, my bad. Subjective was that I should have set in place of complicated above. I will be giving you thanks a lot. Sure, feel free to drop me an email. Aman Swaran. Aman Swaran, if it's okay with you, please say where you're from and what you're studying, just for me to understand. who you are. But I'll start answering your question. How to start reading papers if I'm an undergrad? How to start? Okay, so pick an area. Let's take if I were you, if I'm in my third year of undergrad, let's take now sixth semester of undergrad. What I would do is let's take if my interest is in social networks, I will pick up some, look for some people, faculty who are doing interesting work in interesting places, top schools in computer science, or top conferences or top journals in computer science, which are on social networks. Top conferences in computer science, look for social network track, social network papers published, pick up some titles, look at first titles which are interesting, look at then titles which are, so to say, abstracts which are more interesting, or you could go the reverse, Google Scholar, search for some words that you're interested, pick up some highly cited papers, highly cited papers, and start from there. That's what I would do. And there is this traversal path also that you have to take, right? You read one paper, pick up the references from there, take the references from there. But I think, meaning you got to also keep your, make sure that you kind of carve out something at some point in time, not really keep going the path of getting papers and papers and papers, right? So I use the strategy, I used to use the strategy, which is, I suggest the strategy to students, which is yes, no, and a maybe, which is more to say, when you finish reading a paper, make sure that you have one of these tags put to it. Yes, definitely, which is interesting. I'll come back to this whenever needed. No, which is, yeah, this is nothing relevant to what I'm interested in. And the third is saying maybe it may be interesting to come back, but we'll see. Coming summers, I will be working for a competitive startup this summers. Okay, that's good. That's good. I mean, you're from NIT. Yeah, so I think I don't know whether we have met before, but if not, I hope I answered your question to at least to start with how to pick up some papers. Any more questions? Okay, I'm sure, Mom. I'm happy if the answers helped you. Difference between doing internships at IITK versus DRDO or CDAC, like government bodies after MTech. Difference between doing internship. Again, it probably depends on what you're looking for from the internship, Hardik. But bias towards academics, I think if there are any opportunities for you to do internships at academics, you should definitely explore them. But of course, there are projects that CDAC and DRDO may be doing, which academics we cannot do. So therefore, I think it depends on what you want to get out of the internship. I think you're saying cybersecurity. Yeah, I would still say take it to academics wherever possible. But if not, some of this, I mean, if you get some very specific projects which are super nice, I think you should pick up DRDO versus DRDO and CDAC type of places for your internship. Okay, Sunil Ucharadi. Sunil, again, if you can say where you're from, that will be nice. But wow, but it's already 1.5 hours, so let's wrap it up quickly if it's possible. It's going to be 11 o'clock. Okay, what's your advice for someone from the second-tier university in India to collaborate with people in leading research institutes and to convert these into PhDs? Bangalore, but what are you doing, Sunil? Okay, but I'm not able to understand your question also, Sunil. What is this? And to do convert these into PhD opportunities. But what's your advice for someone from the second-tier university in India? Well, second-tier university at what level? Under that? to collaborate with people in research institutes, and okay, and to also convert these into PhD opportunities. I assume then you just finished undergrad and you want to know whether you want to collaborate. Then what is collaboration? Meaning, yeah, I need to get a little bit more, which is you finish your undergrad, you're working somewhere, you want to collaborate with some top tier places, institutions in Bangalore, and then convert it into PhD problem. Is that the question? Just correct me if I got the question. Sunil, okay, so if my question is right, so then I think it's, I mean, if you're working for a company in Bangalore, you should look at, I mean, if you're thinking of, let's take ISC Bangalore, or if you're thinking of IIT Bangalore, so you should approach the faculty, explore opportunities to talk to them, figure out if they can be actually meaning collaborate with you. Because if you just go as a student, which is an undergrad, I don't know whether that will be called as collaborate anymore, right? You just finished your undergrad, you're working for a company, unless you take the company's backing to say that, oh, this is collaboration between company A and institute B. It doesn't look like it's collaboration. It's more looking like you would want to work on a part-time on a project with them, right? I don't know whether collaboration is the right word there. So now since Sunil, then if you're still in the third year undergrad, that's not collaborate anymore. Use the word in India to collaborate with people in reading. That's not collaboration, right? You're a third year undergrad. You want to explore opportunities to working with faculty in a better school. Unfortunately, Sunil, you got to find out ways to write these kind of emails. You can't. I mean, I'm sure you're doing a good job. But you got to find good ways to writing this email, getting the attention of the people, all that. Because sometimes the demand is not there, right? The faculty is not looking for a student. For example, for some time I was not looking for a student. Right? If I'm not looking for a student, whatever email comes, I'm not going to respond to it or take any action for that email, right? Right, Sunil, did I answer? So I think you got to. So given that you're now saying things that will help, I get it now. Thank you. Do think meeting people in person is a good idea? Yeah, you can. But for that, you got to go send an email saying that I would like to come and meet. Right? You can't just drop into somebody's campus and then say, "Oh, I'm here because I want to work with you." People end up doing that, no doubts, but that clearly goes already negative to the person, right? In some case. Junaid, at last, can you direct to some good resources for the topic of social network analysis, some literature apart from papers that you consider worth exploring and keeping an eye apart from your lab? Okay. So I think you should look at Professor Nilay Ganguly's group in IIT Kharagpur, Professor Ravindran. So I'm answering Junaid's question. Professor Ravindran's research from IIT Madras, Professor Vasudev Verma from IIIT Hyderabad. All right, so these are the people, Professor Partha from IISc Bangalore. So these are the professors that you should look for, Junaid. Okay, good. So I think Junaid, Sunil. Okay, so we have one question. Let me take this question. I don't know whether it's a question or a comment, but let's take it. Kushagra Singh. Kushagra is asking, hey PK, few schools offer a common PhD program where you get a chance to pick up an area over the first year. Most expect you to know beforehand whom you would like to have as a guide and what you would like to work on. So what kind of exploratory period before applying is good to be certain that you want to carry on with a certain prof on a certain topic. So I think, Kushagra, I think the point that I would say is that you want to spend not necessarily time, so to say, only with the professor. I mean, you may or may not get the time with the professor to work on particular area or topic. So I would suggest, if not that particular professor, you should probably spend time somebody else, or again, now the world is very different, right? Working on open source projects, working on projects which the faculty may be very thinly involved. All of that options is there, and then using that opportunity to showcase your skills, strengths, and then going back to the professor saying that, oh, look, I participated in this research, and I think that I was able to contribute. This is what I did, to showcase your strengths. Kushagra, did I answer that, or you think you want more in that? Good. I think you're like very nice. 1.5. We've been doing it for the last 1.5 hours, and still the questions are coming. Okay, Sunil is asking, sir, what's your opinion on doing PhD directly after undergrad, or do you recommend a master's and a PhD? I think if you're thinking of so I think US, if you're thinking of outside India, you can get admits into PhD programs directly from undergrad. In India, it's probably lesser. And in India, also some institutes you can get, no doubts about it, including IIIT Delhi. But I think my general suggestion is, I mean, I think my opinion is also changing more recently. I think if there's a possibility of getting, if you're really sure of getting a PhD, and if there's a possibility of getting a PhD, I might just have to go get it and finish it. That's okay. But if it's not clear, because it's winning PhD is not a cup of everybody, right? I mean, you can't do PhD because there's peer pressure for you to do PhD, and that's not going to work. Because you've got to keep that enthusiasm level higher. You've got to keep that persistence, perseverance for longer. You've got to, so to say, love what you do for some time. You've got to do all that. With all that, if you don't have, it's going to be super hard. So I think getting a little bit of preparation for that would make sense. Okay, good. It's about like 15 seconds to 11. Thanks everybody for joining. It looks like hopefully people have gotten whatever you are. I think for a couple of people I said please email. Feel free to email, and wherever possible, I'm happy to help. If you have any further doubts, please drop it as comment in this Facebook live video. I will be happy to look at it later and try to answer to you. Okay, good luck. Good luck with the PhD. Good luck with anything that you're doing. I'm sure all of you will do very well, and hope at some point in time our roads will cross. Our roads will cross each other. Okay, good luck. Good night.